It's July, and I look as though I am dressed for winter. And whilst it is cold, this is more to do with the fact that I really could not be bothered doing anything with my hair this morning. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie, and today I am going to be talking about nothing in particular. I am aware I talk about my hair a lot at the moment, and I think that this has become a common theme amongst men during lockdown, during these strange times. My hair seems to have become a topic of debate at work now, because certain people will come in and they'll see it and they'll say, I actually like you with long hair. And then I'll get the other people who will keep asking me when I'm going to get a haircut. It almost frustrates me. Not because I'm thinking, well, what do you want me to do? Because frankly, I don't care. As I keep saying, I've had long hair before this. The only difference now is that I weigh considerably less, so I don't know what it makes my face look like. It feeds into this thing of when I first properly started to lose weight. I didn't like when people were coming up to me and telling me how much better I looked or that I was doing really well. Simply because to me, it then made me question what they thought about me before, behaving as though I was slowly becoming more of a respectable, acceptable person by beginning to lose weight, when indeed I chose to do this for myself and I'd wanted to do it for years, as has been documented when I began a series that I never continued, entitled Size Matters. It had been a struggle for years, and it's only when I started looking into things for myself and properly beginning to understand what certain foods did to the body and looking at nutrition and all that, that I began to gain a better understanding of how I could help myself. So for people to come along and try and claim some of that as though their actions where they've been mean to me before had spurred me on to change frustrates me. And I feel like I'm getting the same sort of thing with my hair. I feel like people are trying to claim some sort of ownership over my body, like they can claim how I look and how I dress by being mean to me, or because they don't like something, they believe that I should look a certain type of way. Now, firstly, I need to use my younger brother as an example of what to do here. I will wear some ugly shirts. I like to wear an ugly shirt, especially now that I'm losing weight and I'm finding more ugly shirts that some would call vintage. I'm able to fit in them now, so I wear them more. And my brother will just mock them. Now, he isn't mocking them with the intention of stopping me from wearing them. It's just a joke. Then we move on with our day. Indeed, sometimes I usually get changed when I get in from work. I will stay in those clothes just so that I can get that jokey comment of him. And once, he didn't say anything about what I was wearing because he said I knew it would piss you off more if I didn't say anything. And I feel like that is an okay type of thing. If you're mocking it but accepting it, it's okay. If you are just being mean, that is a different thing. And I feel the same way about my weight. I feel the same way about my hair. And when I said I struggle to navigate when people are saying to me, you look so much better now, or they say something to me that they wouldn't have said when I was big, I didn't get the kindest response from a person I worked with who said, well, it's not nice to the people that helped you get that. They didn't help me. They weren't the ones, you know, I limited my own diet and I did more exercise. They weren't there with me. They weren't telling me what to do. So they don't get to claim any sort of involvement. And the idea that they did really upset me. And all of that because of my hair. But yeah, so I'm wearing a hat and my hair is probably going to continue to grow because I'm aware why hairdressers had to open and other people wanted their hair cut, but I do not care enough. I had a fear of hairdressers anyway, and to compound it with a current pandemic, I do not care. Another thing that I do not care for, since we're just going to list all the things that I do not care for nowadays, I do not care if you come to me and you tell me that you believe this current pandemic is a myth and more people die of flu. Don't do it. Like, don't say it and then say to me, and I'm sorry if you feel differently. You can feel differently. You can disagree with me. I'm like, no, I'm aware I can disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you right now, and you aren't going to stop me from talking and telling you why you're a complete idiot. I am getting sick and tired of people who constantly just want to be mean. And so, for one moment, I'll put current pandemic discussion aside and I will mention LGBTQIA plus issues that always seem to get brought to me because I am the young person where I work. And people will come, and it's usually during Pride Month, which we had last month, and they will have a go at me about certain issues. So recent comments by a major children's author who might have written a detective series under a pseudonym, they made some comments that I did not support, and I believe that I only ever spoke out against during one cozy reading night in which I said I was donating money to a certain charity. Because I'm the younger person, a lot of people decided that they were going to come to me and tell me how the world is getting more confusing nowadays. They asked me how anyone of my age or younger can expect to be taken seriously when we can't even figure out what gender we are. And apparently, we're all being taught nowadays to question our gender and to question our sexuality because it's abnormal not to. And that people are being taught not to be normal. Firstly, what did mummy teach you was normal? Because I'm pretty sure she wasn't teaching you normal, she was teaching you hate, if those are the views you're coming out with. Because so often I am now hearing, I don't have a problem with, insert something here, but. And it's the but I have a problem with. Because there's always going to be the but do they have to flaunt it in everyone's face? Or in terms of the transgender one, I keep hearing people say, it's okay if they choose to be a insert gender here, but I am still going to think them of assigned gender at birth. And firstly, I don't know why they come to me, because I am not the person to speak to about transgender issues, because personally I do not know enough about them. It is something I would definitely have to educate myself more on, so I do not know why they come to me. Because the only sort of empathy I can feel for anyone is when I used to have, my hair was a bit longer, and I used to get mistaken for a woman often, and that used to upset me. It used to hurt. And so being misgendered, but being able to live in the gender in which I am, was the only sort of place that I could ever empathise or sympathise with anyone else's situation. So I'm not the person to speak to on these issues. I feel because of my age, they are coming to me because they want me to prove that I agree with them and tell them that it's okay to have the views that they have. And so often we end up having discussions, and I'm calling them discussions when indeed I don't think they are discussions. I think they're more me being reasoned and them just throwing arguments at me that aren't good arguments, but they are never going to listen to what I say because they've already got such ingrained beliefs. I'm finding that the more of these discussions I have, the more exhausted I am when I get home. I feel like I am now a very liberal person who, for the most part, gets on with everybody, but there are just people there who really don't want to be accepting or inclusive. They don't want to make space for everybody in their lives or have that space there already. They decide that if somebody else is going to get rights that they should already have, they are going to push back against that, such as when a few white people have decided to say a derogatory term towards black people in front of me because they're saying, well, if black people want more rights, then I should be allowed to say such and such. And so I call them out on it, and what happens? I'm the one who is being seen as too mardy or too much of a snowflake. Honestly, if it wasn't for YouTube and the internet and friends and flaming poets, because it turns out that poets and writers are actually a lot nicer than we give them credit for. If it wasn't for all of those people, I think I would definitely be losing faith in humanity at this moment in time. So that's basically been what my life is at the moment, is having very difficult discussions outside of the internet. My thoughts are going to ramble here, but just know that today's Charlie is fed up. Not with you, just with nasty people in general, basically. I have always lived by the whole adage to be kind. I have friends who have different political leanings to me, and we get on. They have different thoughts to me, and we get on, and we can have discussions, and we can accept people's thoughts on things and move on, and we can enlighten each other to what has gone on, and that's great. I don't have a problem with being able to have a discussion with people, and people having opposing views. That's fine. I have a problem with people constantly trying to shut me down or constantly trying to goad me on issues that I don't have the knowledge about just so that they can make me look mildly stupid. Since my last one of these videos, I have indeed had a birthday. And it was just like any other day, really. I got up in the morning and everybody had gone to work, and so I showered, I got ready, I went off to work myself. Someone turned up and gave me a present and gave me a card. That was a volunteer. I put them into my car. The other volunteer said, "Have you had a birthday?" No, they said, "Have I missed your birthday?" And I said, "You've not missed anything." Because I don't like to celebrate my birthday at work, if that makes sense. I'd prefer to get the acknowledgement, like, happy birthday, that's fine, and then just move on with the day and treat the day as normal, because I just weird that way. I can't believe this video. There is now someone using a chainsaw out there, my parents are downstairs making as much noise as possible, and then I'm stuck here trying to create this video. Well, I'm sorry, you're getting a soundtrack of this chainsaw throughout this video, similar to when we get a helicopter. And I'd apologise. I will apologise. I am very sorry that I chose this morning to record when I could have recorded yesterday, but I chose to go to work instead. But anyway, so the day goes as normal and with little comment, and eventually the volunteer I'd told hadn't missed anything did discover it was my birthday and said to me, "You said I hadn't missed, you said that it wasn't your birthday." I said, "I never said it wasn't my birthday, I just said you hadn't missed anything." Which was very political of me, and I felt quite like my grandmother in that point. Oh, I did actually get a phone call from my grandmother just as I was about to head out to work to ask me whether I'd had a card off her yet, and I had not, so she was a bit disappointed. I arrived home from work and my dad said happy birthday. My mother sent me a message to say she wouldn't be home, so I immediately had to start making tea for everybody, which was not what I wanted to do on my birthday. I won't lie, I was a bit miffed. I had hoped to be able to come home and they would have sorted themselves out, but that did not happen. And my sister gave me a bottle of gin, which really I'd say was more of a gift for her. She keeps buying me gin for my birthdays, and I'm not drinking at the moment because of the sugar content in alcohol. So, and then that's really the end of gifts. I opened some cards. I had a bit of an argument with my mother when she came back, and my card didn't even have an envelope, and I just felt a bit worthless, if I'm honest. At the end of the day, I can't hide this fact. I just felt as though I'd put a lot of effort into other people's birthdays, and I hadn't seen the same sort of respect or acknowledgement. And I don't want anything big, but maybe just to be thought about and consider how actions might make me feel. So that was Friday. I ended up disappointed. Saturday I went into work, told them all this, because honestly, if I hadn't ranted, I would have continued to feel upset for days and days at this point. Sunday came round. I think Sunday I edited a video and uploaded a video. Monday I was at work. Tuesday I chose to go in anyway, because I saw that we were going to be short-staffed, and my manager was off last week, so the other shop assistant came in to help me out on Friday and Saturday, and so I'd feel mean if I hadn't showed up yesterday, even though the shop actually turned out being quiet and I wasn't needed, so I could have stayed home and recorded this video then, but I did come home and I recorded a video last night, and then I watched it back immediately, and it was terrible, and it will never see the light of day. Let's talk about what I have been reading. So I finished reading The Bone Clocks last week by David Mitchell, and I believe that it is actually my favourite book by him that I've read. I think that the first character with Holly Sykes, I feel like the first part of that was still my favourite part, and I'm still not sure how I feel about then moving on and constantly having men telling the story of what they had to do with Holly's life. But at the same time, it allows the story to go on for so long because you're getting different glimpses into other people's lives and the way the world is working, and it creates this larger narrative. Either way, after that, I then read Slade House, also by David Mitchell, and this book actually properly creeped me out, so much so that when I read the first chapter, I had to put it aside because it had scared me. But then I read it in one sitting on Sunday morning. I suppose it's tense and it's creepy, and someone said on Instagram when I mentioned it, because I'm not sure I enjoyed the repetition of this one, and they said they believe that the repetitiveness of this book actually added a sense of dread to the story. So I'll have to think more on it. I will definitely keep it, and I will definitely read it alongside The Bone Clocks again in future, because I think that it adds an extra element to that book. Also, a great read if you wanted something to read for Halloween, because there isn't much backstory. Before, I thought that I had to have read The Bone Clocks to have read this book, but now I think that you could read this separately as a nice, creepy Halloween read, and if you'd read The Bone Clocks, that would just add an extra element and a connection to the strands within that book that David Mitchell previously included. Then I have continued my buddy read of The Master and Margarita with Amelia Reads. I'd fallen behind, so I caught up with this book one day last week, and then I have fallen behind again. But I think that today I'm going to skip ahead and read another 100 pages, because I feel like I get more out of this book reading it in longer bursts as opposed to reading a chapter a day, which is what me and Amelia originally agreed, because both of us work, and oftentimes at the moment when I'm getting back from work, I'm just too tired to read, so I'll just go on YouTube, and I'll admit to have been watching a few TikTok compilations on YouTube, specifically the LGBTQ ones, but I'm sorry if I've not been commenting on your booktube videos. That's where I've been. But will be reading another 100 pages of this today, and it has this absurd quality to it that I really, really appreciate reading. I read this and feel as though I want to reread it, and I want to know more of the context behind it. And both me and Amelia have said the same thing now, which is that we have absolutely no idea what's going on, what any of this book means, but we're enjoying the ride. I have been struggling with what to read next, because I like reading something alongside my buddy reads. And so I started reading Till by Daniel Kalman. I just feel as though I wasn't ready for another trickster-style devilish book. I was feeling jealous of Sarah from Hardcover Hearts and Leo of A Little Book Life reading Anita Bruckner after watching their video. I considered rereading Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont then because it sounded to me like that Anita Bruckner was somewhat similar to Elizabeth Taylor, and so I thought that that's the sort of book I wanted, something short and like a character study with not much plot, because sometimes I don't mind a plotless story. I didn't do that because last night I got home and I felt like I couldn't read any fiction again, and so one book I wanted to read every month this year and still haven't because it's 500 pages is How to Survive a Plague by David France. This is a book about the AIDS epidemic and the activists and scientists that worked together to help find the drugs to turn HIV into a manageable disease. And so far, I've read the introduction and the first chapter, and they have this almost the tension of a thriller. It's a bit more heartbreaking for me because I don't know enough about this already. And so, again, this is more of my education into history. It's a strange one for me to read and think about because most of the HIV representation I saw on television as a child was bad. I think most people who grew up around the same time as I did will have this memory from EastEnders when Mark Fowler first got his diagnosis as having HIV and being outcast by society at the time, and there was this constant stigma against his character, and this continued. And so most media that I ever saw discussing HIV and AIDS was always really horrible and treated it as though the person who got the disease was somewhat monstrous. This has changed over time. I don't know whether that's because people recognised that their portrayal was damaging. I don't know whether it's because society has slowly changed their ideas and recognised that the people with the disease were human and are human. I can only imagine that this is going to be a non-fiction work that is going to be informative and heartbreaking. I will see how I feel. Also, today or tomorrow, I really must get back into writing. I can't even remember when I last updated you about finishing the third chapter and the first part of the final Doris book. But I have the next chapter planned out and I know exactly how it's going to go. I know what it leads into and I know what that leads into. And I've constantly had this thread running through my head as to how things are going to happen. I just haven't written anything more. I know this comes from a place of me also trying to keep up to date with YouTube, as well as doing my Duolingo. So most of my days, if I'm awake before 9, then between the hours of 9 and 10, I try and get my Duolingo done for the day. And that hasn't been happening recently. It's been getting left to the end of the day. And Dane has actually been beating me most days, I've noticed, on the leaderboard because I just don't seem to have the mental wherewithal to do as much Italian. Also, as it gets more involved, I am finding it so much more difficult, which is great because I shouldn't be finding it easy. I'm trying to learn another language here. And I will say that I managed to actually read a further 5 pages of Les plus belles stories en giallo, the compilation of detective stories that I got that are told in comic strips. And I managed to read 5 pages without needing to look up any words, which was a breakthrough for me. And that is a book that I dip in and out of because I'm not reading it for entertainment. I'm reading it to learn Italian. It's one I keep thinking I will go back to once I've properly learned Italian and try and see what I think of it. I remember feeling like the first story was incredibly humorous in it, but I'm still not sure what the second story was about. I was just reading that one, trying to understand it. But so, this latest one, it really did feel like a breakthrough to read that small chunk of text and know exactly what was being said and exactly what the situation was. I went with comic books because I felt like the pictures gave you context clues over what was happening. And I remember when I was younger and I started reading comic books as a child, the Beano and the Dandy, that even if I wasn't aware what was going on or who the characters were, through the pictures and through the context, I could still find it entertaining. And then when I went back as an adult, I was probably able to understand what the writers were getting at. After I do my Italian, I should be reading, but I've not been doing much reading. In fact, I feel as though I just haven't been doing anything. And if I look back at where my days have gone, I really can't figure out where they've gone. Maybe I am watching too many compilations of TikTok. I don't know, but some of those videos are really entertaining, and they can just make you feel better about life, if I'm being honest. Also, in terms of my own reading and the books I've got on my shelves, I think I can count now. So I was about to say I only have about 10 books to read, but that's a lie. And you might have seen me glancing behind me over here, because I might have just forgotten that I had a stack of books here. But I forget that these books exist. That's why it's taken me so long to read How to Survive a Plague, because that was originally over on that stack and I kept forgetting it was there. Despite the fact that I really feel as though this is going to become a favourite book of mine, which seems like a strange thing to say, but I just do. I feel like my reading taste is slowly changing. Whilst I'm reading books more slowly, I'm finding that reading them more slowly, I tend to appreciate them more. But that being said, I did read Slade House, Mr. Loverman, and various other books in one go. But that is for a very good reason. If a book is 300 pages or fewer, 300 pages or less, still haven't figured out the difference between those two words, then I'm much more likely to read it in one go, or read it over 2 days, 150 pages one day, 150 pages the next, because that's only an hour's reading. And most of my reading is now happening when everyone else has gone to bed, because I like to read downstairs on the settee, and I like to read downstairs in silence. And I was able to do a lot more of that in April because we were lambing and nobody was at home. But now everybody is at home all of the time, and I feel like I never have any privacy and there is never any silence here. And this is fantastic as being a video of me moaning, isn't it? I hope you were sticking around for all of this. Me, my coffee, and this weird discussion. I haven't been watching anything new, and I do want to watch that TV show that's just started on Netflix. Is it called Cursed? Which is about Arthurian legends, because if you didn't know, I used to be quite the nerd for myths and legends. Specifically Egyptian, Greek, Norse, and Arthurian. Arthurian legends inspired me a lot, and there is the slight chance that in later books of my children's book series, which I should also probably continue at some point, I do have plans for those legends to begin appearing. And so I'm looking forward to that, but I have just been rewatching Bob's Burgers. It's who I am as a person. I just tend to rewatch the same stuff. And apparently, I saw that that was a sign of anxiety and depression, and I just think that actually it's just a sign of a good TV show, but maybe that's me. Maybe that's, maybe I am fed up of psychoanalyzing myself, and so when I see these things, I got upset. I got disappointed by Stranger Things, Good Omens, and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina a few months ago. Yeah, I have never been disappointed by Dinner Ladies, and the episodes of Bob's Burgers that I'm disappointed by are so few and far between. And it's just that show is very quick to get through. I feel like 20 minutes is a great time for a TV show, and I watched that with my mother. I just remembered one day last week, I think it was Wednesday last week, me and my mother spent the entire morning into the afternoon catching up with Harley Quinn, and we've now finished watching the first series, and I did enjoy that show. So that's what I did one day last week. And then let's talk about music as we head towards 40 minutes. This is going to be a bugger to edit. I put together a playlist for my birthday last week. It was called Didn't Join the 27 Club. Similar to my video, because as Adore Delano famously said, all of the legends die at 27. And Ivy Levan even had a song about the 27 Club. And I did worry. I feel like most people who have created anything in the past worry about the 27 to 28 year of their life. So I put together this playlist so you could figure out what most of the music I've listened to over the last year has been. I also have tons of weird songs in there. And I did say to my mother I felt like I was trolling you some of the time. Now, I feel like I want to discuss my inclusion of some of the songs in here. Firstly, it started out with Moona with Stay Away, because that is I wanted to bookend it with Moona. Current favourite band, you have to remember that. So they were definitely getting 2 songs all along. And so you got Stay Away. And I believe that moved into Substitute for Love by V.V. Brown. And then that moved into I Don't Hate You by Kyla LaGrange before moving into Anus by Alaska Thunderfuck. Now, there were a few reasons for including that song. Firstly, I think it's a fantastic song that my mother hates because of what it's about. And so I have been known, when we've been in the car together and she has annoyed me in the past, to Bluetooth the song Anus onto her car radio and have it playing at full volume as she drove down the road. I am a terrible child. I did put that on there because I thought if I ever played this playlist live, trolling my own mother, there were also some songs on there like Rasputin by Bonnie M that, whilst I like that song, I did feel like that might be trolling you slightly. Straight Up by Paula Abdul was on there because I feel like that gave us one of the best lip syncs from RuPaul's Drag Race between Carmen and Raja from season 3. And honestly, that lip sync is the reason why I had been secretly watching all the lip syncs on YouTube, and I'd never told anybody that I was watching that I wanted to watch RuPaul's Drag Race, and I wouldn't do it because I share my Netflix account with my siblings. However, that lip sync made me go and start watching the show, and I started watching with season 6 because that was the latest season on the show on Netflix at the time. Then I went back and I watched from season 2 straight through to season 5, and I kid you not, I just kept watching that show. I would have days where I just binge watched it. Seasons 2 to 6 of Drag Race are the most memorable for me because for an entire year, whilst I waited for season 7 to go online, I would just watch them every single day religiously, and that was all because of Straight Up by Paula Abdul. I included Babushka by Kate Bush on there because I heard it the weekend before and I remembered why I liked that song so much. Also, the reason I like that song so much is because I first heard it when Stars in Their Eyes used to be on the telly. So there is a bit of a section in there which is from the 80s. I think I removed Burning Love by Elvis Presley, otherwise that would have been in there as well. Did I remove Meatloaf or not? I can't remember the entire playlist, but there's 28 songs on there. I also included Todrick Hall's I Like Boys on there, because that would also troll any family members if they chose to watch it. So yeah, basically, sometimes I have family members who can be bits of dicks. And me being me, I am not going to say anything to their faces, I'm just going to cut them off and start being passive-aggressive on the internet. Which is exactly what happened and was why some of those songs were on there. I am such a horrible person. Someone said to me yesterday, this is a person I actually like having discussions with, and we discussed some huge topics at work, and nothing was happening, and I feel bad to my colleague because I was just stood in the back having a chat with a volunteer, and I really enjoy these chats. And he said to me something, and I said how I have been telling people for years I'm a horrible person. He says, "You're not." And I'm like, "No, I am. I am a horrible person." And the sooner people get that into their heads, the better. If I wanted to, I could run through the entire list of songs and say why they were on there. Also, I did do it based on if you were listening to this getting drunk, so I feel like the first few songs on there you aren't really getting up and dancing, then you might dance to some other ones in the next. Then at some point we moved into some hard depressing rock music for that stage of the night where you've got a bit teary maybe, so you just want to be sat down again before moving into some happy stuff. It was all based on the levels of drunk you can get to in 2 hours, and if you know me, I'm a lightweight. I can get incredibly drunk incredibly quickly, so 2 hours is about my limit. I did once say that 4 pints was my limit. But I decided that I would try and test that and have drunkenly told people before that when I get drunk I need to get seen because my fingers get stuck like that, which is true, but drunk Charlie just isn't something that needs to be seen anymore. And also, whilst we're slimming, we're not consuming alcohol. In fact, I even considered just having a sugar-free ginger ale last week and chose not to because I worried what sweetener would do to my body. I didn't even have any birthday cake. I did want a scone though, but we didn't have any scones. That's been me. That has been my entire week. I hope that I brought some semblance of structure to this video in the end. I hope that we went from the mildly depressing topics into the somewhat more happy ones. I have a lot of hopes and wishes and dreams nowadays. Isn't that fantastic? Yeah, so I feel like I should talk about it. The reading rush is taking place this week, which used to be the Booktubeathon, and you'll probably remember 2 years ago I chose not to participate in the Booktubeathon and did a week of writing where I wrote 1,000 words a day, and then that changed and I actually ended up with nearly 15,000 words over the week, and then I continued that every single day and managed to create an Heir to Murder. That's not happening. I'm not now writing 1,000 words a day. I'm not participating in the reading rush. However, if you are, I hope you are having an absolutely fantastic time and I look forward to seeing all of your vlogs. However, don't think I'm being mean if I haven't watched your videos. There are currently about 20 hours of booktube going online every single day. I'm about to contribute to that, and so if I haven't commented on your video for a month and I then appear after a month, I wasn't ignoring you. I just have been having times when I've dedicated to going on someone's channel. So last week it was Doris of Aldi Books. I still haven't finished getting through all of her videos because of work and other things, but since I am unable to, please go to my other folks' videos playlist and watch the videos that are there. But also go and seek out Doris of Aldi Books this week because she creates some of the best vlogs and they'll brighten up your day. Anyway, I'm going to go because my head's getting itchy. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. What are you reading? What are you writing? What are you watching? What are you listening to? And until next time, that is all.